the murderer ultimately turned the girls into meat buns. A group of college students joined a summer camp, expecting an exciting trip, only to mistakenly enter the territory of demons. Feeling regretful as he looked at the blurry photo in his hand, Sam went to a convenience store by the roadside to ask about the destination of the school bus. Upon learning that they were heading to the campsite of a legendary murderer, he immediately bought a large amount of ammunition in preparation for support. However, it was already too late. His classmates had already arrived at the campsite. The principal assigned tasks to everyone, with a thrilling graduation party promised upon completion. As the school bus was returning, it encountered two beautiful women hitchhiking by the roadside. The driver naturally couldn't refuse upon seeing them. While they were being intimate on the bus, someone suddenly opened the door. The next moment, the driver was impaled by the murderer on the roof of the vehicle. On the other side, two college students were bathing by the lake. Little Fatty, passing by the lake, witnessed this scene. However, the two girls didn't want to waste such good weather and decided to go skinny dipping. Little Fatty observed every detail of the scene. Just as he was enjoying the view, he suddenly heard the sound of a tree being chopped down behind him. Turning around, he saw a large tree falling towards him, making him the material for the murderer's meat buns. The sound of the pancake cart moving also alarmed the two girls, who quickly got out of the water and onto the shore. Meanwhile, on the other side, two college students were taken by the farmer to clean the stables. To escape the clutches as quickly as possible, they added spices to the farmer's cigarettes. Taking advantage of him being choked by the cigarette, they managed to escape. By this time, the murderer had crept up behind them. In his confusion, he mistook the murderer for his first girlfriend. A couple had just finished being intimate, but the boyfriend's performance left the girl extremely dissatisfied. Enraged, she drove him away and then enjoyed sunbathing alone, unaware that the murderer had already set eyes on her. Sure enough, the boyfriend had not taken many steps when he saw a giant frying pan. Before he could react, the murderer grabbed him on the spot. The screams alarmed the girlfriend. She called out her boyfriend's name as she got up to check. The next moment, a spherical object flew towards her. She looked down and saw it was her boyfriend's head. The girl was immediately petrified. However, by the time she tried to scream for help, it was already too late. She could only watch helplessly as she was turned into a meat bun while crying out in fear. But her cries irritated the murderer, so he threw her heavily against a tree. On the other side, Sam, who learned about the students trespassing into the murderer's territory, went to the police station to report the incident. He brought out reports of missing persons from many years, indicating that they had all been turned into meat buns by the murderer. He used to be a renowned chef known far and wide. The aroma of the meat buns attracted a hunter who had come to hunt, and the murderer warmly invited him to taste. The hunter had never eaten something so delicious and wanted to buy the recipe for the meat buns, but the murderer refused. Infuriated, the hunter grabbed the murderer and drowned him in a pot of his own soup. Then he found the recipe for the meat buns in the cabin and started opening branches nationwide. However, the resentful murderer was reborn on a stormy night. Dragging his pancake cart, he killed all the outsiders who entered his territory. His ultimate goal was to seek revenge on the hunter. How could such a ridiculous story be believed by the police? They dismissed Sam as a madman and drove him away. Not long after Sam left, the murderer appeared behind the female police officer. The policewoman, feeling uneasy, fired additional shots at the body. She turned around to make a call for backup, unaware that the murderer had resurrected again. Despite her severe injuries, the policewoman picked up a teacup from the table and threw it at the murderer. Unexpectedly, the syrup inside the cup instantly dealt a heavy blow to the murderer. He was actually afraid of syrup, so the policewoman drew the axe from her body. She hurriedly left to catch up with Sam, who was preparing to leave. Upon seeing the policewoman's expression, the man knew that the murderer had reappeared. If they didn't act quickly to deal with him, the remaining students would be in grave danger. The policewoman also informed Sam of the murderer's weakness she had discovered. The two immediately headed towards the campsite. Soon after, another police officer arrived on the scene. However, he was quickly captivated by the sight of a huge meat bun in the middle of the road. Unbeknownst to him, the murderer had already come up behind him. Meanwhile, on the other side, three college students were partying wildly. Just as they were getting into the theme, the murderer suddenly burst through the wall. The two girls were so scared that they ran out like crazy. They fled into the woods but accidentally stepped into a trap. As the best of friends, one girl didn't hesitate to run for her life. Little did she know the murderer was already behind her. Those who abandon their companions to escape alone never have a good outcome. She was soon caught by the murderer. On the other side, college students were having a graduation party. However, when the principal picked up a pancake, he saw a student's face on it. Suddenly, the murderer broke in, wielding an axe that struck and killed a female student. The others were terrified and scattered to flee immediately. Only one person stood frozen in fear, unsure of what to do. The principal quickly opened a door and then darted into the kitchen to hide. He let the murderer have free rein outside, indifferent even when a female teacher came knocking at the door. Just as everyone prepared to rush out, the murderer appeared behind the female teacher. The others quickly rushed towards another exit. Before they could open the door, the murderer caught up with them. In a critical moment, the boyfriend stepped forward. He used his body to block the door, allowing his girlfriend Sarah to escape. He sacrificed himself under the murderer's spear. Sarah continued to run, and along the way, she saw a classmate sitting on a bench. After calling out to no response, she reached out to pull her. Unfortunately, the girl had already been cut into meat filling. The murderer appeared again, and Sarah and the classmate fled into the stable. Each found a weapon to defend themselves. At this moment, Sam also arrived, claiming he knew the murderer's fatal weakness. It turned out the murderer was afraid of syrup. However, this claim was strongly opposed by the principal, who urged everyone to flee with him. Sarah insisted on seeking revenge for her boyfriend, so the principal had no choice but to run on his own. To his surprise, after running a few steps, he discovered that his lower body was missing. However, they only had a small bag of syrup, which was not enough to kill the murderer. Therefore, they had to go to the kitchen to find more syrup. This was the murderer's home, and he had already eaten all the meat buns. As the murderer walked in, the chainsaw crucially failed to work. The chef was grabbed by the neck and thrown out. Just as Sarah found herself in a desperate situation, a police officer burst in. At a critical moment, Sam appeared with a hunting rifle. They thought it might end there, but to their surprise, the murderer resurrected shortly after. Sam approached and was knocked down by the murderer with a punch. Sarah picked up the gun to shoot again, only to find that she had run out of bullets. She was then lifted by the murderer and thrown into the kitchen. Just at that moment, she found several large barrels of syrup. She then stripped naked and covered herself entirely with syrup. Revealing her true identity, Sarah told the murderer that she was the granddaughter of the hunter he once killed, and that she had made a lot of money using his meat bun recipe. Sarah enraged the murderer, who recklessly charged towards her. They embraced tightly, the syrup on their bodies causing the murderer to melt instantly. In the end, he turned into a bomb and vanished into smoke and ashes.